Good morning, everybody. Excuse me, and welcome back to The Walk. Today is Thursday, May 29th. And we have read Hebrews 1 through 4. I want to give you that reminder before we go into verse 5. And it says, long ago, at many times and in many ways, God spoke to our fathers by the prophets. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, through whom he also created the world. He is the radiance of the glory of God and the exact imprint of his nature, and he upholds the universe by the word of his power. After making purification for sins, he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty on high, having become as much superior to angels as the name he has inherited is more excellent than theirs. If you want an explanation of those 4 verses, go back to the previous videos this week. Look at Tuesday and Wednesday, and you'll get that explanation. So now the author of Hebrews is going to go into this explanation for proof that Jesus is higher than the angels. And how does he do that? How does he prove it? He quotes Old Testament scripture. And we're going to see a lot of the Old Testament being referred to or even quoted throughout Hebrews. That's one of the cool things about Hebrews, is it's a book that can help us to interpret what was back in the Old Testament. So verse 5 says, "For to which of the angels did God ever say, 'You are my son, today I have begotten you'? Or again, 'I will be to him a father, and he shall be a son'?" Okay, so the Old Testament said in Psalm 2:7, it says, "I will tell of the decree. The Lord said to me, 'You are my son. Today I have begotten you.'" That was not said to an angel. That was said to Jesus. And when we go to Samuel 7:14, it says, "I will be to him a father, and he shall be to me a son." So that is a direct quote from Psalm 2:7 and 2 Samuel 7:14. And basically what the author is saying here is that God never said that to the angels. He only said it to Jesus, and that's what makes it so special. Jewish interpreters often link texts on the basis of a common key word. Like several other messianic texts, Psalm 2 originally celebrated the promise of the Davidic line in 2 Samuel 7. So when we see this begetting, it's referring to this royal coronation of Jesus, where he is exalted far above all of the angels. Verse 6, "And again, when he brings the firstborn into the world, he says, 'Let all the angels worship him.'" Okay, that again is a quote from the Old Testament. When we go to Psalm 89, verses 26 to 27, it says, "He shall cry to me, 'You are my Father, my God, and the rock of my salvation, and I will make him the firstborn and the highest of the kings of the earth.'" So basically, this firstborn is saying that he's going to be high above the rest of these, of any other part of creation, and that God's angels are going to be worshiping him. The specific inheritance of the oldest son, it is a title for the Davidic kings in Psalm 89, 26 to 27. So Jesus is the only one that has this, and where he is called the rock of the salvation, the firstborn, the highest of the kings in the earth. To Jesus's coronation as king and consequent superiority over to the angels, this is coming from the Cultural Study Bible, the author applies a text from the Greek translation of Deuteronomy 32:43 from a context that diaspora Jews used for worship alongside the Psalms. So when you go to Deuteronomy 32:43, you're going to see that they use these phrases to worship, and that they're being used now to worship Christ. Verse 7, "Of the angels," now this is what God says about the angels. He says, "He makes his angels winds and his ministers a flame of fire." In the Cultural Study Bible, it said that this was a quote of Psalm 104:4. When you go to Psalm 104:4, it says, "He makes his messengers winds and his ministers a flaming fire. So what this might mean is that God is using the wind and the fire as his messengers. Early Jewish thinkers understood it as saying that angels were made of fire. So they would have believed that the angels were made of fire. Hebrews shows that angels, unlike the Son, are of a lesser nature than God. They are there to serve God. They are his messengers. So we've got to remember that Jesus is highly, highly exalted and worthy of all the praise that we give him. Have a wonderful day. God bless, and keep walking the walk.